Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. So, I'm going to talk about a couple of things this morning. Mornings sometimes are the only times that I can get on and do lives. Last night I was supposed to do a members live, and do you know what? I just fell asleep. I was just so exhausted. I'm doing 2 hours driving every day apart from working and trying to keep up with my channel. I literally fell asleep. So I'm having right. I've got some news before I start. I'm going to have a shake up of my channel. I've got to really sort of think about, I've got the two channels because I started the Spanish and English channel first, and now I feel like I'm doing a lot more crime videos on there. And that is the main channel because that was the first channel that I set up. So that actually is my principal channel. So I'm thinking of sort of swapping things around. Anyway, I've got a lot of thinking to do about how to do it and how to do my members' lives. I may have to just do them spontaneously because it's very difficult for me to actually plan a time that I'm going to do it. Something always happens, or, so it makes it difficult. So I may just have to do sort of arbitrary lives whenever I find that I've got some time to do it and nothing's going wrong. I don't know. So it's something that to watch out for. And these lives that I do in the morning, they always seem to be uninterrupted because if I can get up early in the morning, I do a live before the chaos descends in the day. It always works out better. So that would probably be as far as lives are concerned. And then maybe, more planned videos, pre-recorded videos that I can put out as premieres so you can still or chat to each other. So I know you like chatting to each other. So that's the whole thing of a live. People like the lives because you can go in the chat, have a little chat with each other. And I understand that, but just sometimes it's just so difficult. If you're a regular viewer of my channel, you'll know if there's not bangers going off or dogs or I've got to go somewhere or there's always something going on, isn't there? There's always a chaos. Anyway, so what I'm going to talk about in this video, I'm going to give an update on the Nancy Guthrie case that I've been doing most mornings, even though there's not, nobody's been arrested yet. But, every day you think today could be the day that a suspect is arrested and actually charged, because, of course, we have had a couple of people detained. But that was quite a long time ago now as well, wasn't it? Since Luke was detained and Carlos, both released without charge. It was ages ago, weeks ago. Nothing really for weeks as far as detaining people, etc. is concerned. Anyway, we're going to talk about that, the latest thing that people are talking about in this case, which is, was the Wi-Fi in the area jammed? Was what that person was carrying in their pocket, was it a Wi-Fi jammer as opposed to a walkie-talkie? But first of all, I don't want to talk about this man. I'll be glad when it's all over. So this is Ian Huntley. He's in the hellhole. I've put him in the hellhole. He's not quite gone yet. He's like hanging on. He's like the turd that won't flush, isn't he? So Ian Huntley is that horrible, horrible man who murdered these two little girls quite a long time ago now. They're frozen in time, aren't they, in their United shirts. That photo was taken under the clock at Holly's house just before they decided to go out for sweets, go out in Soham in Cambridgeshire in the UK. They decided to go out for sweets and never went home, disappeared. And it turned out that, we don't know the full story of how it happened because this twonk has never come clean as to what really happened that day. But this is Ian Huntley, who was arrested eventually. He was a caretaker at their school. His girlfriend, Maxine Carr, she was the girl's teacher or teacher's assistant. And it's likely that that's how he lured them into the house, was by telling them that Maxine Carr, apparently, I think he may even have admitted to that he said that his girlfriend Maxine Carr was in the bath. And she just, I think what had happened was, these girls, they loved Maxine Carr. She was the teacher's assistant. She was quite young. They thought she was great, and she'd applied for a permanent job at the school, and apparently she hadn't got it. So they were sorry that she hadn't got it. And somehow Ian Huntley lured these two girls into the Tide cottage close, that was part of the school, for the caretaker. He got the job there probably because Maxine was already working there as a teacher's assistant. And in those days, this case, one good thing that came out of this case, I suppose, was it changed a lot of things, because it was scandalous that this man, he had offences against him in the north of the UK. But it wasn't, he wasn't, there was no criminal check done. He was given the job as a caretaker of a school, even though he had offences against him, against young girls. So that is something that definitely came out in this case and was rectified now, I believe. You will have to have the criminal checks before you can get a job. I mean, it just seems like a no-brainer, really, doesn't it? Don't give someone a job at a school before you've looked to see if they've got any criminal history against children. It's just like, you just can't believe that it ever happened. But anyway, it did. And of course, we are more, our things that we can look at on computers and stuff to check people's credentials are better now. You could somebody would be in a database. And Ian Huntley today would be on a database as an SEX offender and would flag up immediately that somebody put his name in, I suppose, presuming they gave the correct name. I don't know how that works. So he probably wouldn't have got that job now. But anyway, he did then, unfortunately. And, through Maxine and the fact she was a teaching assistant for these girls, then these girls would have trusted Ian Huntley, wouldn't they? Because they had no reason not to. And there they were buying their sweeties. They'd had a barbecue. Holly's parents had had a barbecue at their house. Oh, how the parents must feel. I just cannot imagine, because they were having a barbecue at the house. They didn't even know the girls had left the house. But they would have gone to do something they've probably done a million times, go and buy some sweets at the local shop. There's two of them together. They just wouldn't have had an idea, would they, of what evil was waiting for them there. And anyway, before I carry on, I just want to say thank you to everyone for liking, for subscribing, for bearing with me. Special thank you to my members. Special thank you to those of you who sent me Ko-fis, super stickers, etc., emails suggesting cases. Thank you to everyone who gives a positive input into my channel. Thank you to you lovely lurkers out there. Thanks for watching, and thank you to Replay Crew. And there's a couple of people in the chats, a couple of people up early this morning. Hi Mark, hi Kaz, hi Daniel. Yeah, so here we are. So anyway, so why Ian Huntley is in the news again, of course, is just a few days ago, he was attacked again in prison. So people like Ian Huntley, who have murdered children, they're always a target, aren't they, in prison, even with the other horrible twonks that are in there, you know. So the person that attacked Ian Huntley is not a nice person himself. He's a murderer and an rapist. But of course, I suppose in prison, it's probably quite boring a lot of the time, and people feel that they get kudos if they can attack, what's the word I'm looking for? Especially infamous prisoners, especially those that have attacked children like Ian Huntley did. And, you know, it wasn't only it was bad enough what he did that day. So let's just go over that day, because Ian Huntley, he was so angry that day because he'd had an argument with Maxine, his girlfriend. She wasn't there. She was staying at her mother's. He was insanely jealous. Ian Huntley is typical coercive control freak. He was angry with Maxine, really angry with her. And so when these poor girls sort of walked past his house, it's not clear if they knocked on the door. I think didn't he say he was washing the dog outside or something, and they stopped to talk to him. I think he probably saw them through the window in his angry state and went out and approached them. I wouldn't be surprised if that's what he did. But anyway, somehow he got them into the house, probably by saying that Maxine was there and she'd love to see them or whatever. Anyway, once they were in the house, we don't know exactly what happened. He says that Holly had a nosebleed and he was trying to help her, and then Jessica started screaming. And he did eventually admit to killing Jessica, but he still has never said really what happened with Holly. Anyway, whatever, these two girls, he killed them both. Killed both the girls. And who knows what else. I mean, the thing is, we don't know what happened. Probably better, really, but I don't know. Anyway, then he set about an elaborate plan, of course, to dispose of their bodies. He took them out to the woods and put them somewhere where, you know, he thought they wouldn't be found. He arranged their bodies. He was likely to end up being a serial killer. I think definitely this man, if he would have got away with it, it would have given him a taste for it. You know, he'd already had a checkered history. And even if you look at Maxine Carr, although she was a grown woman, a young woman, but she looks like a child. You could just see he liked young girls. I don't think he would have stopped with Holly and Jessica if he would have got the opportunity to continue. Anyway, luckily the police were on the ball with the Ian Huntley case. They investigated into him. They interviewed both him and Maxine. Now, Maxine, you know, she is free now. Apparently, she was given a new identity. She's married. She's got children, or a child at least, from what people say. I think there's not much doubt in my mind that although Maxine was not involved in the murder of these two girls, she probably helped in hiding them. Hiding their bodies, because maybe she believed his story. He will have told her it was an accident, wouldn't he? He would have come up with some story. And unfortunately, we know some people believe these twonks and what they say. And, you know, instead of going to the police, she sort of stuck it out. The police interviewed her. To me, it seems quite clear in the interviews that she did know something had happened with these girls, but I don't think for a minute she was actually involved in the killing of them. But anyway, she was found guilty of aiding and abetting, or I can't remember what the actual charge was. But she served a very, very short sentence. And yeah, she was out before you knew it. Unlike Huntley, who was found guilty, he made the family go through the trial, a long trial, gruesome for the family. He did not plead guilty. Um, he's just a vile man, as I say, not only what he did to these girls, but afterwards, because he then returned to their bodies, set fire to them. So when the girls were finally found, their parents could not even, sort of look at them, or, I think they were given a lock of their hair, and they could hold their hand through the body bag or whatever. It's just vile what this man did. Anyway, got a sentence that befit the vileness of what he did. I think he got a life sentence, a whole life sentence, didn't he? Let me just check that. Anyway, he certainly got a life sentence. And then, of course, he played the mental health card. He, he was in a mental health facility for quite a long time. Anyway, when this final attack, I'm calling it a final attack. Do you know, last night it was saying all over social media that he was dead. And then I wake up this morning and people are saying, oh no, the life support machine's been turned off and he's got hours to live. He keeps hanging on. I mean, I don't know how Holly and Jessica's family feel about this. And of course, they're what really matters. Would they like him to die, or would they prefer he goes? I mean, he's never going to go back into the prison population. He's blind, apparently. So after this vicious attack, he is definitely blind and probably in a vegetative state. So they're saying. So with the agreement of his mother, they've turned off the life support machine. But he's still hanging on, or up to now anyway. So, God, he won't want to go. He won't want to go up to the next world, because God knows what's waiting for him there. He's in the hellhole, so he'll be clinging on because he won't want to go, because he's got, he had his prison sentence, but he's got an even bigger sentence. He's got even more accountability coming to him when he goes into the next world, I believe, and hope. So this happened on the 7th, the girls' bodies were discovered on the 17th of August in 2002. And he was convicted of the murder of both the girls on the 17th of December 2003 and sentenced to 2 terms of life imprisonment. And so apparently his minimum term was 40 years. Now, he was only in his 20s, so technically, I suppose, he could have come out eventually if he wouldn't have been attacked like this. Because was he 26, I think, when he was sentenced? So he would be 66, so he'd still have some life left in him. Anyway, I don't think that's going to happen now. So, as I say, he's been attacked. He was on a life support machine, but the life support machine has been turned off. So it's just a matter of time, isn't it? I suppose. Just a matter of time. But how long is he going to hang on for? I don't know. It's the families. I feel a bit for his family, for his own mother, because she is his mother at the end of the day, and she has condemned everything that she's done. But I suppose she's still his mother. I mean, I don't know how you get your head around that, really. But of course, the most important people are Holly and Jessica's families. They have got a life sentence, a whole life tariff. Any families of victims, they get a whole life tariff. They'll never see their loved one again. Their daughters are frozen in time. And not only that, they sort of belong to the public as well in a way. You do understand what I'm trying to say? It's like, even if they want to be private about it, it's sort of nice in a way that they've got the support of the public, but it also brings out the crazes, doesn't it? And I read Holly Wells's dad's book, and years ago, and just awful some of the messages that they got. This is before social media, really. Just awful some of the things people were saying. Just people are weird, aren't they? Some people. So yeah, they're it's not only they've got this terrible tragedy in their lives that they've got to deal with, but it's sort of almost part of the public sort of own a little bit of it in a way. Like me doing this, see, but it's we genuinely feel for the families, but I don't know whether I suppose that could be both a comfort and a curse, that the public does care. It's a sort of a comfort in one way, that everybody feels for you and sympathises with you, but it could be a curse as well if really what you want is, you don't want to feel that people take part ownership of your children. It's a very strange situation. Anyway, I think as long as people are respectful, that's got to, be good. Anyway, so he did that, and he went back and set fire to the bodies, and then he was caught because in his caretaker role, there was like a bin that you would dispose of things, and he told the police he didn't have a key to the door where that was, but in that bin were the United shirts or the remnants of the shirts of these girls, those two United shirts that they were Manchester United shirts that they were wearing on the day they disappeared, and that was probably the final. They'd been suspecting Huntley anyways, but I think that was the final bit of evidence that sort of, led to him being arrested. So now Maxine Carr, she's, you could say she's a victim of his as well, but I don't know. He was insanely jealous of her. He was a very controlling man. But really, she did stick up for him perhaps a bit too much. I don't know. Anyway, she's free now and she's living her life. Now, I wonder how she will feel as well. Will she be relieved? We heard his daughter. He's got a daughter, though he didn't bring her up. She never even knew he was her father until she was 14. We watched her being interviewed, a very level-headed young lady, but she's been through hell. She is an innocent person in this. She's in her 20s now. And when she heard he'd been attacked, she's sort of hoping that he dies, because so then it's over. Because she's tried her best. She tried to go and see him. She wanted to talk to him, not because she wanted to talk to him, but because she was trying to get answers for the families. Like she wanted, because he's never told the full truth about what happened that day. And of course, if Huntley dies, which it seems that he is going to die, and even if he survives, he will be in a vegetative state, blind, etc. So he's never going to tell now exactly what happened, but she tried to get him to talk by writing him letters. Anyway, he wouldn't. So, he's a selfish man. The thing is, he could never bring Holly and Jessica back. He'd done what he had done done to Jessica and Holly. So, he could never bring them back, but he could give the family, tell them what happened, because if they wanted to know, which I presume they did. I mean, that again is a bit of a, you'd be, because it would be circling in your head every day. What happened that day? What happened? How did he get them in the house? What's the truth about what happened? What were their last moments like? Did they call for their mum or dad? And I would imagine that these are the kind of things that would haunt you as a parent. And he could have given them some peace, at least by telling them what actually happened, give them some answers to their questions. But he wasn't interested in making anybody else, doing anything for anybody else. He's a very selfish man. All he's interested in is himself. And, he was really, complaining, or he was going to rot in prison and blah, 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 blah. Well, good. So anyway, he has rotted in prison, and now it looks like he's on his way out. If he ever finally lets go, I don't, as I say, I don't know how Holly and Jessica's family feel, and they're the most important ones. Would they have preferred for him to carry on rotting in jail and suffering attacks every now and again? Because he'd always have there'll always be, at the end of the day, he was in HMP Frankland, which apparently has got, the worst offenders in it. And so he's always going to be a target, wasn't he? How this man managed to, apparently hit him over the head with a metal bar thing. How he managed to do that, who knows? Do the guards look the other way? The other prisoners certainly didn't try and help him. No one's going to help someone like Huntley or any similar type of killer. Especially anybody who is old enough will remember this case, because it was so iconic. The photo of the girls, and it held the attention not only of the UK but all over the world, that two little girls could just be walking to the shop to get some sweets. I always think that the cases that attract the most attention, they are the cases where people are doing very ordinary things and bad things befall them. They were 10 years old, these two girls. There was two of them. It was a lovely day. They were in a safe place at Soham Village that is like probably, never hardly has any crime. It wouldn't have even occurred to anybody that they wouldn't be safe, but they weren't. So I think these are the things that always, people doing ordinary things, walking their dogs, lying in their bed asleep like Nancy Guthrie. You can't get more ordinary things than that you should be safe doing. Two little girls going to the shop to get some sweets. I mean, they weren't like 4, they were 10. They were old enough to go and get some sweets from their local shop in the daytime, two of them together. It just shows evil is waiting in places, ordinary places as well. Evil's not sort of like 4 o'clock in the morning when you're walking out in an isolated place on your own and you've had too much to drink. You could do that and not get attacked. But just to be doing these ordinary things, or like Nancy, not even, just sleeping in your bed, for God's sake. You can't get much more ordinary than that. You should be safe in your own bed. I mean, you should be safe everywhere. If you wanted to walk at 4 o'clock in the morning through the woods in the pitch black, you should be safe. There's no reason, there's no excuse for anybody doing anything bad to anybody. But yes, some things are more dangerous than others, that you have to be aware more, obviously in the middle of the night, wandering around the woods probably wouldn't be a good idea. But you know what? If you wanted to do it, why shouldn't you be able to do it? Makes me look at and it's making me think about Sarah Everard. We've just had the anniversary of her murder by the police guy Wayne Couzens. He's apparently terrified he's going to get attacked. Nobody would shed a tear for him either. So there she was just walking home, Well, I think it was around about 8, 9 o'clock in the evening, wasn't it? Walking home, a grown woman through busy streets, really, in London, and yeah, he is a policeman. Bloody stopped her and said she shouldn't be out because it was COVID, and he was arresting her, got her in handcuffs, got her in the car, took her off and murdered her. You know, they're just terrible. You know, she was just walking home from being at a friend's house. So yeah, these are the cases. And of course, Sarah Everard, her case as well, I think, because he was a policeman. And it turned out his nickname was the Rapist, wasn't it? Was it him who had that nickname? All the other police, they knew about his, what's the word, his reputation. He'd exposed himself in a McDonald's, gone for fast food in a McDonald's and exposed himself to the girl on the that was serving in the McDonald's. You know, these are things that shouldn't have happened. Sarah, that Wayne Couzens, he shouldn't have even still been allowed to be a policeman. You know, a police officer. And then, of course, when he was arrested and questioned, he came up with some story that this gang of Eastern Europeans had told him he had to find them a girl to traffic, and you know, he just took her to them, and then she disappeared. They took her off. He has no idea what happened to her. You know, he came up with a load of crap, didn't he? And he was another one of those that walk amongst us, because in the meantime, he was married, he had kids, he'd been on the phone to the vets about his dog, concerned about his dog. You know, these are ordinary people who live amongst us, but they have this secret. In secret, they are monsters. You can never underestimate. You know, you never know what's going on in someone's mind, do you? No matter how normal, in inverted commas, they look. But anyway, yeah, that's a good point, Kaz. I mean, you know, he'll have got the other thing about Ian Huntley or any prisoner, if they are attacked in prison, or if they've got, this is why they live so long. A lot of prisoners, you know, they live forever, don't they? They go on forever because they don't have, you know, I know it's horrible to be in prison. Nobody wants to be in prison, but you don't have to worry about your bills. You don't have to worry about medical care. You know, you'd get instant medical care and the best medical care, wouldn't you? You know, it's a lot of prisoners do seem to live. Look at Pete Sutcliffe, he lived a long time. Ian Brady, he went on for a long time, even though he'd been on hunger strike. He wanted to die, Ian Brady. I mean, he never wanted to live, but he still lived until he was, I think, in his 70s. And despite being, you know, he smoked a lot, didn't he? I think he died of cancer in the end, but I'm not sure. And despite all these hunger strikes and this, that, and the other, he was being force-fed. And, you know, they go on forever because they get the best treatment, because prisons have a duty of care, don't they? So you've got a roof over your head, you've got your 3 meals a day, you've got probably a telly or whatever. I mean, you know, although nobody wants to go to prison, but it's not, you know, there are people living on the streets that have a worse life than prisoners. Probably some people that, well, I know for a fact that some people on the streets, they'll go and commit a crime, so they get a couple of nights in prison where they get fed, etc. You know, this is what happens. So, yeah. Anyway, is he going to go this time? I literally overnight, when I was looking, you know, where you sort of wake up, well, I do, have a look at my phone, see if there's any news, mainly about Nancy Guthrie at the moment, because of course America, when I'm asleep, America is awake. So I always think when anything breaks about Nancy, it's probably going to be in the middle of the night as far as I'm concerned. So I always have a little look, and saw that said a lot of people were saying that he was dead, but now I think what they were saying was he'd been taken off the life support machine. But, you know, is he going to succumb? Who knows? You know, these evil people, they hang on, don't they? He'd be too scared to go over to the other side, that's for sure. Who's going to be waiting for him? You know, you always hope, don't you? And people say, and I hope it's true, you know, when somebody's passing over, that people come to meet you and that you loved before, that had already passed before you. Who's going to come for him? You know, you just think, who's going to come for him and greet him? You know, he's like going, I'm going to just put the hellhole on again, just to. This is where he's going, into the hellhole. Adios, amigo. You know, it's hard to feel any sympathy, isn't it, after what he did? And not only what he did, but he never, you know, he never relented and told the family the whole story. Do you know what I mean? It's not only what he did was bad enough, but he had no remorse. He had no remorse or thoughts for their feelings. He's got no thoughts for anybody but himself. So it's hard to feel sympathy, except for, you know, being a human being, and we're not like him, that we don't feel sympathy. But, you know, it's hard to feel any sympathy for him. I don't like to see anybody suffer. You know, it's even him. You know, I don't revel in the fact that he's dead. The person, or he's practically dead, the person who's done it to him, he's not a nice person either. It's not anything to be proud of. But, you know, it's hard to feel any, you know, what's the word, any empathy, isn't it? It is hard because he's such, he never, you know, God tells us we should forgive, but I tell you that, but he's hard to forgive, isn't he? Okay, so I just wanted to tell you about that. When, you know, if the news comes out that he has finally gone, I will let you know. But anyway, the life support machine's been turned off. I presume it's his mum who gave that permission, because you have to have permission, don't you? Normally the hospitals, that's what happened with my friend years ago, who was in an accident, and finally, sadly, her parents were told, look, you know, she's not going to survive, or if she does, she will be in a vegetative state. And they decided to, sorry, I'm going to be talking about Nancy in a minute. They decided to let you know, to give permission for the life support machine to be turned off. So it doesn't normally take that long after, you know, if somebody is in a vegetative state and the life support machine is turned off, doesn't normally take that long afterwards, does it? You know, but this, he's like, you know, he's clinging on to life, I imagine, because he's too scared of what's going to face him on the other side. Good morning, Julie. Buenos dias. I think today it's not raining. Honestly, the weather here in Spain, for those of you who don't know, I'm in Spain in Europe, and it's supposed to be a lovely, hot, sunny country, isn't it? Not at the moment, not lately. Been rain, 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 cold, cold, cold. But hopefully we'll have a better day today than yesterday. Wasn't too bad, actually. It was the day before that was the worst. So let's talk about Nancy now. Yeah. Whew. This, now it's funny because although these cases are so different, you know, Holly and Jessica and Nancy Guthrie are completely different types of cases, apart from being, you know, Nancy's case, of course, is in America as well. So apart from being in different countries, totally different sort of circumstances, but they have got something in common, and that is the vulnerability of the victims. So, you know, predators of all kinds, be it an sex predator, be it, you know, just a con artist, whoever it is, they pick on vulnerable people. And who are the most vulnerable people in society? Are the very young or the very old. You know, you'd be surprised how many older people become victims of crime I even watched a crime podcast once with David Wilson, I think his name is. He's someone who appears a lot on true crime on the telly, professor, saying that the most likely victims of serial killers are actually women over 65 or something. So it's like, because they're so vulnerable, they're much more vulnerable than a woman in, of 30 who's maybe in prime physical health, and they're still vulnerable. Women are vulnerable in general, of course, but they've got a chance of fighting someone off or physically, but yeah. So children and old people, men or women, are so vulnerable. So they have that in common. Um, there was Nancy, 84 years old. I still can't believe that you could get to that age and go through everything that life has to throw at you. You've got to, through all the medical issues that she'd gone through. It was probably traumas. She'd lost her husband, she'd lost her parents, lost her brother. You're going through all those things that life throws at you, get to 84, and then you're kidnapped out of your own bed in the early hours of the morning. For God's sake, that's just terrible, isn't it? It's just. Okay, you should be able to hear me again then. The bloody electricity just clicked off for a minute. It does it sometimes. Oh, God. So it literally went off for 1 second, and then the whole thing went, and I had to go, you know, link up, connect again to the internet. So I presume you can hear me now. I'm presuming you can hear me now. Let's hope so. So we're going to talk about Nancy now. This, I was trying to put this picture up. There you go. Should be all working okay now. All back now, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Just literally electricity clicked off for 1 second and everything went. Anyway, we're back now. So the latest on the Nancy case that a lot of people are talking about is some of the neighbours in the area have said that the internet, there was a break in connection, like at some point, and so there's speculation: did this person, whoever it is, use a Wi-Fi jammer? Now, I don't know much about Wi-Fi jammers. I'm not, that technological, but let me just put some windows down and then I can get up some information about this. Just need to put the windows down about Ian Huntley. So, what do you think about this? I don't know if any of you that are following the case, if you've heard about this. The guy definitely had something in his pocket that people were saying was either a walkie-talkie or a Wi-Fi jammer. So let's have a look at this article on ABC News to get an idea about it. So yeah, let me share it. To give us an idea. Okay. So new concerns over potential technical outage in Nancy Guthrie's neighbourhood. So apparently, in the ongoing search for Savannah Guthrie's mother, detectives in Arizona are asking neighbours about any Wi-Fi lapses the night before she went missing. Now let's put the sound on.
If they had any Wi-Fi lapses the night before Nancy was.
Let me go back to the beginning.
Tonight there is news in the Nancy Guthrie case. Detectives in Tucson back in her neighborhood going door to door, asking neighbors if they had any Wi-Fi lapses the night before Nancy was last seen. Authorities not revealing why they're asking. Savannah Guthrie and her family offering that $1 million reward for anyone who helps bring Nancy home. Tonight there is news in the Nancy Guthrie case. Detectives in Tucson back in her neighborhood going door to door, asking neighbors if they had any Wi-Fi lapses the night before Nancy was last seen. Authorities not revealing why they're asking. Savannah Guthrie and her family offering that $1 million reward for anyone who helps bring Nancy home. So tonight there is news in the Nancy Guthrie case.
I was trying to, right, let's pause it. We'll pause it on the picture of Nancy. Oh, it's just doing whatever it wants, this. Never mind.
Guthrie and her family offering that $1 million.
Yeah, pause it while it's on Nancy. So apparently some neighbours have said that they had Wi-Fi problems that night. Now, it just seems a bit odd to me because this is supposed to have happened at 2 o'clock in the morning. Would you even know if you had Wi-Fi problems at 2 o'clock in the morning, or unless you're a night bird, I suppose, a person who maybe someone, or if you woke up and checked your phone or whatever. So is it possible that these people jammed? I honestly cannot believe that nobody has been detained so far. You know, they seem to have so much they've actually even got, these CCTV images and things, but they don't seem to have a vehicle, or at least not that we know of. They don't seem to have, a particular vehicle that they're interested in. And until they get a vehicle, they can't sort of trace where it went or what it did, because you've got to identify a vehicle of interest first before you then can sort of trace where it went, etc. Having said that, they may have one and we just don't know about it. The other thing is, did they, why have they not, is there no mobile cover? There's no, have they tried that, what do they call it, geofencing? I'm sure they have. I'm not trying to tell them, what they should do. They know what they should do. They don't have to listen to me. But so have they sort of, why was Carlos and Luke detained? Now, Luke said he'd left his phone at home that night, didn't he? Which is odd in itself, I think, because people don't leave their phones. I mean, at the end of the day, these days, your phone is like just attached to you, isn't it? There's not many people whose phones aren't attached to them. We take our phones everywhere. We don't turn them off, even when we're charging them up. We just plug them in, charge them up. We don't. I bet there's very few of you out there, if any, that ever turn your phone off. And, I was listening to a podcast, I think it was Brian Enton, and he has a lot of retired FBI people on. And they were saying, like, what you look for is the absence of normalcy. So, like, if, for 10 years you have been turning your phone off, at the weekend maybe some people get to Friday and they think, right, that's it, I'm turning my phone off. Because if they're with their family or, they don't feel that, I don't think this many people would do that. But let's just take it for the sake of argument. If every Friday you turned your phone off, or every time you went to bed, people turn the phone off so they don't get interrupted in the night, turn it on in the morning when they wake up. So what the FBI will look for is, do you always do that? Now, if you've been doing that for the past couple of years, then that's normal. So they wouldn't think that was suspicious, turning your phone off. But if over the last couple of years you've never turned your phone off, and then suddenly, like Brian Koberger, he turned his phone off just before he went and committed the murders in Idaho, and then he turned it back on afterwards. But it wasn't something that he regularly did. He didn't spend his time turning his phone off and back on again. They had no other record of him doing that. So it was an absence of normalcy, and that obviously points towards you. If you do something in anything, not only with your phone, but I suppose anything, if you normally, if every Friday you went to eat at a certain restaurant for years, and then one particular Friday you went to a different one, well, it'd be, well, why did you go to the different one? Why did you go that way? Or what, you went a certain way to work every day, but then one day you went the long way round. Why did you go the long way round? So they will look for anything in your routine that is different from your normal routine. So like saying about Luke, if he left his phone at home that day, now that wouldn't seem strange if he often left his phone at home. But if he never left his phone at home and then just suddenly that one day he left his phone at home, then yeah, it does seem strange. He was questioned and he was released, and that's all we know so far, isn't it? But yeah, I've seem to spend a lot of my time at the moment staring at this photo. It's almost as if I think I can look at into them arresting him. It's just, you're looking at, it's fascinating to think, who is this person? this person is out there somewhere. He was standing at some point. He was standing outside Nancy Guthrie's door just before she disappeared into a puff of smoke, practically. Who is he? Why was he there? Why has Nancy been taken? Was it a burglary gone wrong? Or was it a targeted kidnapping? Or was it even a targeted murder? You know, the questions in this case are mind boggling. You know, and that's for us, no matter how her family must feel. And something occurred because, of course, a big question is how did they get Nancy, who was uh, you know, had problems walking. Apparently, how did they get her out? Did he put her over his shoulder to take her out of the house? Do the police have any footage of him actually going out of the house with Nancy? Did he sling her over his shoulder? And then something else that occurred to me is because, you know, a case that we covered, or many cases, to be honest, you hear of this happening. You know, and I don't mean to be graphic. I'm not being graphic, but you know, it's not very nice thought. But did he take her out in a suitcase? Because that happens quite often. That the case of Anna Knezevich, the poor girl who was poor woman, 40 years old, just split up from a husband, came to Spain, to Madrid for a new life. She's American, or America. She's from Colombia initially, but American national, split up from a husband who's Serbian, David Knezevich. Came to Madrid, Spain for a new life, and again just disappeared. And it turned out that her husband had travelled all the way from Serbia, to Spain, because it is overland. There is no water in between. It is all, and he hired a car. He drove from Serbia to Madrid, and somehow he got into her apartment. We don't know how he got into her apartment. He sprayed the CCTV of her apartment building with black spray paint. It seems he got in there because he had a crash helmet. He was dressed as like a delivery driver. He sprayed black paint on the CCTV in the apartment building, and then somehow he got into her actual apartment, killed her, and put her in a suitcase. And because he was seen, even though he'd blocked out the CCTV with black spray paint, he hadn't even done that very well. You could still see through it. And he was seen coming out of the elevator with a suitcase, which presumably had poor Anna's body in it. And then he drove all the Right, it went off again. I should be back now. I'm hoping I'm back now again. Sorry about that. The electric just keeps clicking off and then coming back on. Literally only goes off for 1 second, but it's enough to cause chaos. Anyway, so just got, so this poor girl, Anna Knezovich, that's what he did. He took her out in a suitcase. So it occurred to me, because we don't know how he got Nancy out of the house. How did he get her out of the house? Where was the vehicle? Was there a vehicle? Or is this person, does this person live roundabout? I mean, this part of me would not be surprised. Do they live locally? I mean, how did they get Nancy out of the house? How did they get her out of the house? And why was there blood on the step? And, was she already deceased, or is she still alive now? We don't know. But one way that they might have got her out of the house, I suppose, is in a suitcase or in there's so many mysteries in this case. Or was somebody waiting? Like, there's all this speculation that maybe this is a gang even, or certainly more than one person. Was somebody waiting there just out of sight in the driveway, or just outside the driveway, somebody waiting there with a vehicle, and maybe this guy just put Nancy over his shoulder and took her over that way. But I think she would be, her mobility was restricted, so it'd be quite difficult to get her out there. Or did he take her out in some sort of bag, or what was in his rucksack? I'm still fascinated by that rucksack with all, it looked like it was full to the brim. The rucksack, so much stuff in it. What was in it? Was it something to carry Nancy out? Because it may be that this was intentional to kill Nancy, not supposed to be a kidnap. Maybe it was a murder, intentionally. Maybe it is to make someone suffer, like Savannah. And then, of course, we've got, if you want to go into the real conspiracies, is it to do with the Epstein files? Because Savannah, she interviewed the victims, didn't she? Including Virginia Giuffre. It wasn't her father, or is it her husband, that was to do with the Clinton administration? The Clintons are in the Epstein files. And that's another thing that I just want to tell you about that. I'm just waiting. There's, apparently it's bad enough what's come out already, but I think some of the videos and that are going to be coming out soon that really implicate Trump. That's something I say to watch out for. I don't even want to look at them. It's bad enough what I've looked at so far. It's so depressing, the Epstein files. You just can't believe there's so much evil in the world. People are, the evilness of these people, and nobody's been arrested. Nobody, only Epstein himself, of course, but he died years ago. And we've got Ghislaine, she's in prison. But really, apart from that, what about all the other people? I just don't understand. If the FBI have had all these files for so long, with, clearly awful things on them, I just don't understand why people are still walking around free. Despite what they've done, just don't get it. Yeah, that's another theory, isn't it, Marg, that did Nancy even get home that night? I've seen a few people saying that. And the thing about Tommaso and Annie, so Annie is Nancy's daughter, Tommaso's her husband. They've had a lot of shade thrown at them, of course, because they were the last people to see Nancy. So I suppose it's logical. Did Nancy get home? Because we've seen no CCTV of Nancy actually arriving home. So the garage door opened and closed. We know that, but that doesn't mean to say that it was Nancy who went in. was it? And apparently it wasn't open for very long. Would it? I mean, I know how slow I am, and I've not got the mobility problems that Nancy had, but I'm so slow. It takes me, ages to get up the steps and get into the house. The dogs are up there, and my son's in straight away. He doesn't even bother waiting anymore because he waits so long for me to get up the steps. I mean, not that Nancy had steps, I don't think, but yeah, it just seemed very quick, her going into the garage, for a lady with mobility issues. And we, as I say, we have not seen anything to show that she did arrive back home. So, of course, because we've not seen the proof of that, we can't be sure of it, can we? So, it's a real mystery. This whole case is a mystery. And I've got to say, I haven't got much faith, as you know, in the sheriff's department. And that faith was made even less yesterday. I was watching JLR's stream yesterday, and I don't know if any of you watch his stream, but I watch it intermittently. And he has these, there was a lady there at the scene, and Trisha, her name was, and how can I describe her? So she was very vociferous. She was very annoyed with the government. And I think she put over some really good points. I thought, but her manner of delivering them, she came over that maybe she had some mental health issues. But you could tell that she was really passionate, because she said, what is it that we can go to a country miles away, find someone? I suppose she talked about the Iran war and killing the Ayatollah. Then go to a country miles away, find someone instantly and, kill them. And we can't find Nancy Guthrie in our own country. And she was moaning about the government, etc. She was having a good rant, basically. And it was interesting because the thing is, her manner of delivery maybe was very emotional, and but it's very true, a lot of the things she was saying. Anyway, so next minute the sheriff turned up, the Pima County sheriff, not the sheriff, not Sheriff Nanos, but one of the deputies, drove past JLR, and this woman was standing right next to JLR, and this sheriff turned to JLR and said, oh, we've had a call about a drunk woman with glasses. Do you know anything about it? Have you seen her? She was stood right next to him, for God's sake. She was literally standing next to him, looking at him. And this sheriff saying to JLR, we've had a call about a drunken woman in glasses causing a disruption. Do you know anything about it? Have you seen her? And JLR just went, oh, no, I haven't seen anything. And the thing is, she wasn't drunk, this woman. She wasn't drunk. She was quite passionate in the way she spoke, and maybe, she didn't come over to me as being drunk, just maybe, a little bit, I don't know, so, some mental health issues maybe, but not drunk, not drugs, not anything like that, just, real passionate. And this deputy then just drove on. He didn't even see this woman that was standing right next to JLR, that it was the woman that had been called in. Now, good, because I'm glad, because, she hadn't done anything wrong. She was just there giving her opinion like everybody else. So I'm glad that he didn't realise it was her. But I just thought, oh, my God. If you can't find someone who's standing right next to you when you're asking someone about that person, have you seen a woman with glasses who's supposed to be drunk? We've had a call about them. Have you seen it? Do you know anything? Have you seen anyone? And she's literally stood there looking at you. And she even said afterwards, I was stood right next to him. I mean, it was insane. It was just, I thought, oh God, this is the police department that we're dealing with in this case. Is this is this the police department? So Keystone Cops, Pink Panther, Inspector Clouseau, Naked Gun. These are the words I'd use to describe this investigation, which is a real shame for Nancy. So we have to hope that the actual FBI maybe are doing something a bit more, you know, a better job of everything. And yeah, we have to think maybe today will be the day. Maybe every day, because we're on day, well, God, 30 something, 35, is it? Day 35 of this case. And yeah, those 2 early detainments were weeks ago now. Nobody's been detained since then. And of course, the other thing that we'll wait and see if it happens, you know, what happens with Ian Huntley as well. Yeah, a lot of people, it's true, Mark, about Luke Daly, there is a lot of resemblance between. Anyway, the thing is, there's so many possibilities still in this case. I don't feel, do you really feel? I don't feel like we're any further on in this case in these 30 odd days. In fact, if anything, things are even more confusing, aren't they? A lot of it's thanks to this guy. He's like, can't understand a word he says, can't believe a word he says. But half the time, I don't know what he's saying anyway, because it's so confusing, contradicts himself so much. Sheriff Nanos. Anyway, so this is the important person. Where is Nancy? Where is she? Is she still alive? If she's been taken for ransom, did it all go horribly wrong? And now they don't know what to do. You know, because she's no longer with us and they don't know what to do. I don't know. Nobody's come forward. Well, say nobody's come forward. I mean, the thing is, we don't know that nobody's come forward. The FBI are going through all the leads. They had a lot of leads after the $1 million was offered. And yeah, it could be the very next lead that they chase up that leads to the retrieval of Nancy one way or another. It could literally be that. If you've got 20,000 leads, it could be the 12th or the 1,200th lead, or even the 1,999th lead that actually turns out to be the lead that's successful. You know, they just have to keep chasing them down. But anyway, let me know what you think of this Wi-Fi jammer business. Do you think that's important at all? You know, it did occur to me that maybe the person who said they didn't have any internet between those, you know, they had a problem with their internet between, you know, to their, maybe they're the ones who did it. You know, that's a possibility as well. That's what it's, oh, you know, my camera wasn't working between those times. Don't know what was wrong with it, but maybe it was working, but they just didn't want to say it was. I don't, you know, there's so many different possibilities in this case. That's what's keeping us all awake at night, wondering what's happened to this woman, poor Nancy. So we may get answers today, and if we do, I'll be back to tell you about them. Please remember to like, subscribe. I'll see you really soon in the next video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about Nancy, and may your God go with you. Bye.